Welcome to State of the Art Southern Illinois, a podcast by the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. Our guests today are Derek Hamblin and Brandyn McGhee from Rocky Horror Show, coming to the Marion Cultural and Civic Center this weekend, October 28th and 29th at 7 p.m. and midnight. Listen as we discuss the origin of the Rocky Horror Show, why it's become such a hit in the region, and what turned it into a phenomena with a huge cult following. Brandyn, Derek, thanks for joining us today. We are kicking into what is Rocky Horror Weekend here at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. It has become an ongoing phenomenon here in Marion for 11 years now, with 10 productions. Missed a year due to COVID, of course, but yes. Let's start out with the basics. Derek, what is your role with the show, both on stage and off stage this year?
Off stage, I am directing the show. I've been a part of the Skyline Creek Productions tradition of Rocky since the beginning of 2013, 12, 13. I think it's 12.
The math says 2011.
I think it's 11.
It's been so long.
Do we need to start over?
Is it?
No, I think this is great.
It's been so long and everything wrong.
Dude, it's 2011.
Oh, it's 2011. My bad. But I've been a part of the whole production since then. I'm the director and the music director for this year, and I'm also playing Riff Raff. This will be my 6th year doing that role. Yeah.
And you've been involved with it every year.
Every year, music directing. I've done everything since at one point I've done everything throughout the entire process of this legacy of the show.
And Brandyn, you're back in the production again this year. What is your role within the production?
So this year I'm playing Frankenfurter. This is my 5th time playing Frankenfurter. I've played Brad 2 times in the past, and the first year I ran sound, and then I have only not been a part of it 1 year. So pretty much, yeah.
And you're also a lighting designer for the show this year as well.
I am, yeah.
So both of you are playing roles both on stage and off stage. Brandyn, you're also set designer and construction this year as well?
Yes. I've helped out with that almost every year, I think, but kind of taken the reins on it the last couple of years. And we did last year we decided to do a complete redesign of the set and just made it a little more functional and easy to kind of reuse from year to year if we wanted to, or adapt however we needed to. So, yeah, it's been working out pretty good for us. So,
all right, so let's look at it from the lowest entry point. What is Rocky Horror Show?
It's a lot of things. So Rocky Horror is based off of a musical written by Richard O'Brien. He wanted to write something based off of kind of the B movies that you see from the 30s to the 1960s. Mm-hmm. So he decided to write Rocky Horror, and he starred in the show as Riff Raff. And so then, based off of the musical, most people don't know that the movie is actually based off of the musical, and it's not vice versa. So,
and where did that musical start?
Well, it was a tiny little, hole in the wall theater in London that they just kind of put it together, and
it became a huge
cult following. Yeah. So yeah, and then from there they made a movie, and then Glee did a version of their thing, and then there was a new remake of the movie recently, and a live TV special, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of ballooned.
So what would you what's the basic plot, the basic story? You said it's a B movie. It's a take on a B movie. B movies were the movies that played in addition to the premiere movie in drive-in theaters for double features, and they were these low budget campy horror films.
Yeah. Cheese sci-fi. I mean.
And so the nature of the storyline very much takes off of that in the campiness and in the in the cheesiness of some of the lines and the characters and that. But what is the basic story?
So you've got a young couple, Brad and Janet, who have gone to a wedding, and they're on their way home, and they're driving, and they get a flat tire in their car. And so they got to figure out, how they're going to fix that tire. So they stumble upon this giant castle and ask for help. And they happen to arrive on a night where they're celebrating their yearly, occasion, as they call it. Where, the master of the castle has come up with another one of his creations, which is, a man that he... this perfect man that is, in his mind, he's,
it's going to be his partner.
Right. And so he comes up with this creation, and these couple kind of stumbles in the middle of it, and they meet all these other characters, and you find out, they're aliens, and they're from another planet, and this whole thing. And so Brad and Janet, their lives are completely changed from this one night when they stumble upon this, this castle party that they're having, and it's very much a culture shock for those two characters. Mm-hmm. They're dropped into a different world that they've never experienced or even conceived of before. Right.
And a completely different life and lifestyle that they've never conceived of before. And like you said, it's transformative for their characters. What are some of the characters in the show, and what are some of the aspects of some of those characters in the show?
Well, you've got, Brad and Janet that I just talked about. They're the young couple that comes in.
They're like the innocence that starts the show, and you see, I guess, kind of like the urges, the things that are inside people that they maybe mask and they do come out, and it's kind of like throughout the course of the night they change into another type of person by the end of the show, but they're like the innocence characters that go through this change, and then at the end they're left with who they became.
And then you've got Dr. Frankenfurter, who I play, who is kind of the master of the castle, kind of the Frankenstein, of the show, creating all
the Dr. Frankenstein of the show, not the Frankenstein's monster of the show.
Right. And then you've got Riff Raff, who Derek plays. Yeah. Frankenfurter's servants, Riff Raff, Magenta, Columbia, who actually isn't a servant technically. She's kind of stumbled in at one point too, I think, and just kind of became a part of it all.
I sometimes think that she's maybe one of his creations.
I think she is.
I think she's one of his creations. Because there's that jealousy that she has.
Now, here's my question with that. Is she literally a physical creation of his, or is she someone who he's molded her personality into being part of it?
I guess it's...
I could be either, I guess, the way
my view on it is with his first attempt at a creation, who comes back in the show in the form of Eddie. Mm-hmm. He's pretty rough sawn, kind of a failed attempt at a creation.
First time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but he wasn't even a creation.
No, he came to the castle. That's what I'm getting ready to say. He came to the castle as a delivery boy, and then I assume Frank tried to turn him into whatever he could.
Nabbed him.
But Columbia was already there because she knew about Eddie. So that's what makes me think that Columbia was one of his creations initially.
Could be. Yeah.
I don't know.
Or maybe she was just another one.
More.
Yeah. She was just one that stumbled along too and just kind of wanted to be a roadie. And
so we need to create a Columbia origin story.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we should. Let's write it.
That's the new Netflix series. Columbia Origins.
So you've got Columbia, Magenta, Riff Raff, Dr. Frankfurter. Who else do we see as part of this?
Oh, we got Rocky Horror. He's the creation. Blonde hair, pretty muscle guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gold shorts.
So not what you would think of as Frankenstein's monster.
No.
It's like the actual refined
Yeah.
optimal version of Frankenstein's monster.
Mm-hmm. Glisten and gleam.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you've got Eddie, who is one of the original creations. You've got Dr. Scott, who is Eddie's uncle, who Brad and Janet know from being a science teacher at their high school. And so he stumbles into the whole situation at some point. And
you have a narrator that...
The criminologist,
that narrates the story as we go along, and he's sort of like in and out of the characters. Like he's separate, but then he will show up in songs and be a part of that moment.
So he's not necessarily a functional part of the story, but yet he still interacts with the characters anyway.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned that Rocky Horror has this cult following. What would you attribute to that cult following? Where do you think that comes from? What do you think people identify with within this story, or see an experience or an opportunity to do within this show that makes it such a cult following?
I think that one of the reasons that happened with this is that the time when it was 1975.
Yeah.
And 1975 was when that hit the actual stage. And I think it was a time in history when people were a lot more free, and that it gave them another outlet to go and just be themselves. So, I mean, I don't want to use the word freaks, but I mean, I think of Let Your Freak Flag Fly from the Shrek the Musical. That's a great song. It was just kind of like, be you and celebrate that. And I think that at 1975, when this was on stage, it was one of those moments when people could go to the theater and be themselves and participate in the party. And then it's just continuously represented that to where every year new audiences come and they just love the fun that you're allowed to have while watching this ridiculous story and this music and this fun, this party.
It's very different from other musicals in that the audience gets to participate in the show. There are different throughout the years. There have been different callbacks or responses that the audience, give or make towards what's happening in the movie and on stage. I
think it's the only show that I know of that you do that.
Yeah,
I can't think of any other musical that you go to.
So wait a minute. What do you mean the audience is involved? How is the audience involved?
So basically, there are different lines throughout the movie or different things that happen that over time the audience has kind of thought of things or come up with things or created things to talk back to the stage. So like whenever Dr. Scott enters, Brad says, "Great Scott." And then what has adapted over time is that the entire audience throws rolls of toilet paper around because of Scott toilet paper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. So you're telling me that an entire audience full of people TPs the theater.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Pretty much.
And is like fully involved, and it's a full party atmosphere at that point.
Yeah. Whenever Frankenfurter creates Rocky, I mean, the audience is encouraged to wear party hats and have party blowers and that kind of thing. And
there's when the car breaks down and they're going to the castle, it's raining, and Janet pulls out newspapers to put over her head to shelter from the rain. On stage, the entire audience will have newspapers, and they're holding newspapers up, and then there's flashlights. And that's like the props
that's the prop part of it.
But there's also vocal things that happen through the entire show that's just evolved. And after, doing this for 11 years, there's still things that we hear every year that are new that we don't know about. There was one the other day in rehearsals. I'm sure
I can't remember.
I can't remember. It was a Jeffism, because Jeff, our stage manager, he has a Bible of Rocky Horror that he's used every single year, and it's got everything written in it. And there's always new ones, and he said one. But anyhow, it's kind of, I guess it's a throwback.
So are you saying the audience literally yells at the people on stage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that as a performer? I mean, that has to be slightly unnerving and really an opportunity for you to get caught off guard and take you out of character. How do you stay locked in at that point?
It's super challenging as an actor at first. If when you first do the show, it's like, wow, like we've never. People normally applaud and yell for you, but not necessarily like along with the show. Like it's so you're used to the applause after musical numbers or scenes or whatever. But it's just getting used to it. The first couple times was really challenging. But like Derek said, we've heard so many things throughout the years
some of us that have done this, we kind of know where they're going to happen, so it doesn't necessarily catch us off guard. It usually happens one time every year when we're on stage and we're like, we got this. We know what we're doing, and then someone says something that we have never heard before. And we like they've been doing this forever have a moment of like, ooh, that was really funny. And we have to keep it together. But like the new ones, the people that have done this 1 year or two, they're still, they have it harder because they have to focus more.
Yeah.
Because it still is funny. And you can hear the same line over and over and over again in the callback, but it is different every time. But the way they say it, the reaction on
The
stage.
timing of
the
it.
timing,
Yeah.
It's...
So it sounds like the audience is almost a character and a dialogue all its own that completely adds a completely different layer to the theatrical experience. It almost makes it fully immersive because things are happening with props and toilet paper and confetti and party blowers, and
it makes me think of like, I've done it before in my high school years, like going to the movies on a Sunday and morning movie, a theater movie, and going and seeing a show and no one's in the theater. I was the only person, or me and my friend was our only person that bought a ticket, and we were just yelling and talking back to the movie the entire time. It's kind of, it's like we are their movie, we're their picture show. If you see the movie, there's a difference. There's the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is the movie, but the actual show that we do in the production that's live theater is called Rocky Horror Show.
So all of this can happen. There's a phenomenon that is all of this interaction happening with a film being played, and a shadow cast, if you will, that's loosely acting it out and being a part of it in front of that film, and then the audience reacting with that. But then there's what you guys do, which is taking that to a completely different level and doing a full Broadway style musical theater show.
Right.
Yes.
With all that audience interaction.
And there for a while, the movie with the shadow cast, which is actors performing basically in front of the movie.
In front of the movie.
There for a while, that was what was most popular and what was
That's
happening.
All I ever knew.
Right.
Like I knew of the show. This is like my whole, I didn't even watch the movie all the way through until the first year that we did this. I've always tried to watch the movie with friends in college and stuff, and I was just like, okay, this is weird. I don't know what I'm watching. But I only knew that. I didn't really know the stage version, and I always knew that there were like shadow cast happening, and then this happened.
Yeah. And the more recently, like I've seen on social media and I've seen all over the place that people are starting to do the musical version more, and it's starting to gain momentum and steam. And I don't know if that's attributed to the newer versions that's come out with like Glee and the new live TV special and that kind of thing where people are seeing it more. But yeah, the musical is really starting to like be produced more. So
I find it so telling to the story itself that you, who is somebody who's been in it for so long now, never really made it through the film because of how weird the story was in the film.
I think for me personally, at that time in my life, it was just one of I've changed. My musical taste has changed since then. So it was just one of those where I was just like, I don't get it. But that was, I was in college, and I didn't even like the musical Rent in college. I couldn't listen to it, but it is one of my favorite musicals now. So, I mean, it was one of those situations where in college, it was just one of those shows where I was trying to watch it, and my friends were loving it, every minute of it. And I was just like, why don't we just watch Joseph? Like that was one of my favorite college shows at that time. But like it's changed, and color me weird. I don't know.
So we've talked about it having a cult following, but it's also weird that you guys have been in and connected to this show for 11 years now. That's pretty outside the box and atypical. So what draws you guys into the show, and what draws you guys into coming back to this performance and back to this production year after year?
I got to be honest. The first year I did it, I had no idea what I was getting into, and that was the year I ran sound. And it was just crazy. And after watching it and seeing it so many times during rehearsals and performances and seeing the crowd and all that, I wanted to be in it the next year. So I auditioned, and I was Brad the 2 years after that. And I just had so much fun that I was just like, well, I mean, this is a totally different experience than what I've ever done theater-wise, so why not, keep going? I mean, if it's fun, why stop? So I auditioned the next year and got Frank and played Frank a few years in a row, and then took a year off, and then, COVID happened. And last year I ran lights for the show and designed lighting. And then here I am, the 10-year, alumni cast that we're doing back in the show as Frankenfurter. And
so let's talk about that. It's because this is the 10th year of production of it. Mm-hmm. What is special about this year from a casting standpoint?
We wanted to do, since it was our 10th show, of course, COVID being thrown in there, where there was a year that we missed, and we did a show last year, but it was our 9th production. This is our actual 10 years on this stage.
We did some, during COVID, Derek created some kind of filler videos that had, he brought together some of the cast members to sing, and we created the music with slideshows and videos and that kind of thing just to fill the void. But we didn't really consider that to be like an onstage show. So this is like the official 10-year onstage, production. But,
and with that, we wanted to do something special. And with the producers they had been talking about doing this, wanting to do something like a reunion cast, if you want to say something like that, from a couple of years. And so we were like, well, 10 years, why don't do it now? And so we decided, that we'll do this an alumni cast. And basically we invited anyone in the area that had been in the show previously that was still, because we've had people move away, different places in the world now. And so we asked everyone that was local if they would like to be a part of it. And we compiled our cast that way and started rehearsals, and it's been different.
And we have people from every single year in the show.
So anyone that's come before, everyone on that stage is somebody that's been on that stage in this production before.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So no new cast members, no
Not
brand new cast members at least.
Mm-mm.
And so it's everybody that's familiar with the show, that's been in the show, that are seasoned performers to the show, that's used to the audience reactions and everything else. And so that's a pretty special thing, that you've got this group of people who have this communal connection to each other through this Skyline Creek Productions production of Rocky Horror, that all comes together as a reunion cast. That's pretty amazing.
The whole process has been amazing.
It's been so much fun. We've had rehearsals have been, they've just been so much fun with all these,
We've had fewer rehearsals.
Yeah.
But it's been, the word weird, but like I can say something and everyone's like, yep. No, I can say like one sentence and everyone knows exactly what I'm referring to. All we had to do was just refresh, learn some new choreography. Everything else was there. We know how the show goes. We know what's happening, what has to go where. Because usually there's, like the moving of the sets and the bringing on stuff. And this year it's just been like, Jeff is like, you, and you. You're bringing this on at blah, blah, blah. And then it happens. The rehearsal process has been so easy.
And at the same time, like, we found this week that we've been adding little new nuances to our characters and adding some new little things here and there that honestly I've lost it a couple times on stage. Last night, we've had some fun, and because we've been able to, we haven't been stressed about what, learning lines really or learning blocking or what we needed to do on stage, because we've done it before. So we're able to add those extra layers of character and extra layers of, fun to the show.
The room that's being added within the rehearsal process, even with fewer rehearsals, because everyone knows it and everyone knows the show already, and they're just kind of refreshing back into it. Mm-hmm. It's allowed you all to develop further and add more depth, which is going to add more richness to the show overall. I'm really excited to see this. It's
been so much fun this week. We've only had 2 dress rehearsals this week, Monday and Tuesday, and it's been crazy fun. Just the new things that we've been adding in and playing around with, and we've been able to. Because we're using the same set design, I was able to also take kind of the lighting show from last year and kind of adapt it to this year's, show and add some new stuff to it as well. And that's kind of taken a little bit of level of stress off, because we've been able to rehearse with lights from the very beginning. So it's just like
costumes
and
some of the stuff has been reused, but I know for the most part of the principals, we've maybe had to do like just a couple new things just as size wise, but everybody else is just like, yep, got it in my closet from the last
Just
time.
adapting to that COVID weight.
I'll bring it out of my closet.
I literally have a duffel bag that has Frankenfurter in it at home that I unpacked and brought into the theater. And
I had a riff-raff zip-up thingy that hangs. Yeah, it's a completely different experience from other productions. Not that the other ones were bad. This has just been
a lot easier and just a lot of fun.
It's been easier.
So one thing that I've noticed from the theater's perspective is that it constantly has new and young people coming to it. What do you think is the draw for the younger crowd who have no idea what it is, that have never been to it before, to come year after year? Because it's always all these upper high school and early college kids that are coming to see this show. In addition to, diehards that are here every year, and then people that have known it because it's been a cult phenomenon since the late 70s. But what do you attribute something that's lasted this long to continually have a new, fresh, young following year after year after year?
I think it's word of mouth that's getting to the younger generation. I think that they're hearing about how much fun it is and how it's not your typical theater show where you go sit and you listen to, a musical or whatever, that you get to interact, you get to have fun and dance and all that kind of stuff. It is really true that we see year after year after year more and more and more new people coming to the show. And I really think that it's just a word of mouth kind of thing. It's just passing it down the line.
The best party in town.
Yeah. Yeah. So the younger people are the people who come in, the night of the show and purchase their tickets, and they're the ones that, they walk in. They don't necessarily purchase their tickets in advance like a lot of the older, the older crowd do. Oh, it's Rocky Horror. Yeah, we know that. We knew that from back when we were, in our teenage and younger college years. But this crowd is just like, yeah, let's go. We've heard all about it. It's a lot of fun, and we want to be a part of that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for taking some time out of your day during this crazy production week to sit down with me today. I'm so excited to have it back again this year and for it to be a phenomenon in Marion, in Southern Illinois, year after year after year. And the following and the crowds just continue to come over and over and over again. So thank you for both being a part of that and creating this legacy of Rocky Horror as it has been, because you've both been involved from the beginning. So thank you for all of your involvement in that, and thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for State of the Art Southern Illinois, a podcast by the Marion Cultural and Civic Center, featuring local artists, artisans, musicians, arts organizations, and arts events in Southern Illinois, as well as touring artists coming to the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. Special thanks to Brandyn and Derek for their time speaking with us today. Don't miss your opportunity to see them on stage this weekend in Rocky Horror Show here at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center, October 28th and 29th, at 7 p.m. and again at midnight. Join us every Thursday morning for a new episode on Facebook, YouTube, or whatever audio podcast service you prefer. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.